Welcome to the train station. All aboard or all are bored?
3, 2, 1. Third time's the charm. Welcome, everyone. We have some exciting news to share with you guys here today. Our podcast is actually sponsored by Holland College. Holland College is inviting high school students to become a student for a day on February 1st. You'll have the chance to sit in on a class and connect with current students and instructors. It's a great way to explore post-secondary programs and discover what's best fit for you. You can choose from programs like Fundamental Arts, Business, Marketing, Wind Turbine Technology, or other industrial trades in technology. Register online to choose from participating programs. Mention this podcast on the online registration form to be entered to win some Holland College swag. One of our listeners will receive a Holland College hat, mittens, and a hoodie. Visit hollandcollege.com/events to sign up.
Yeah, guys, we're super excited to be collaborating with Holland College for this special giveaway, and we're hoping that you guys contribute to their event on February 1st?
Yep, February 1st.
I think it's super important to evaluate post-secondary for you and the options that Holland College brings in. It doesn't have to be a university degree. It can be a trades program, something super simple, but gets you your foot in the door for your career.
And the fact that it's turnaround day at the high school system, within the high school system, it's an opportunity for students on that day to actually get in and take in the programs and take a look across. And I'm sure the website will give directions as to the various centers that are offering the programs. But go to that website and make sure that you mention the podcast and get recognized for that. So
yeah. And kind of the change tracks here per se. Another thing is too, this is actually going to be our first filmed episode.
That's right.
So if you want to run over to YouTube to actually see our face as opposed just to hear our voice, you're more than welcome to do so, and maybe drop a subscribe.
Yeah.
Drop a like.
Drop a like. Yeah.
But other than that, I think we should get right into it. And we're going to be talking about the upcoming by-election in District 19, which I believe was Jamie Foxx's district.
Yes,
right?
that's correct. Yeah. It's super sad to see him go, but we wish him all the best with his luck in running for federal, which we're very, very proud of him for. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
How did that kind of come out?
I think, Jamie's been around. I think he first elected in the riding in 2015, and then again in 2019 and again in 2023. I think there was possibly some talk of possible like a by-election or a federal election because of Prime Minister Trudeau's kind of precarious situation and the deal that he's got with the NDP, if that ever came apart and the minority government would fall, with the contingent in that of pharmacare and also in dental care, right? So that seems to be holding, but I think around Remembrance Day was the last day. I think Jamie was before in the House and kind of announced his intention that he was going to be seeking.
Because I think he was a veteran, right? He
served in the military, I believe, military police. He had also served former chief of police in Borden, and he had run a couple of times for the nomination in Malpeque and was unsuccessful, and I think ran a time or so even provincially in elections and wasn't elected. So persistence and determination gets you a lot of things in life. So the opportunity come up. The nomination, he was nominated by the party or appointed by the Conservative Party to be the candidate, and so really between now and when the election is actually called is an opportunity for him to get himself known throughout the riding, Malpeque riding, and then his intention to resign from that seat then opened it up, and by law the Premier must within 6 months call a by-election so that citizens have representation. So
February 5th is our election day. So do we want to start getting into the
details?
Yeah.
I mean, kind of first and foremost, maybe talks more so about who the candidates are in that area.
Yeah.
And I think, to my knowledge, this is the third time Matt McFarland has run. I don't know if it's in this district specifically, but
Green
I
Party.
Yeah.
Green Party candidate. Yeah.
I do believe he ran in 2019 his first election, then 2023, and then this one. We do have 5 political parties on PEI.
Yeah.
We have 4 candidates running. The Liberal Party actually did not run a candidate in the last provincial election last April. They did not run a candidate in this riding. And the only party that is not fielding a candidate is the Island Party.
Okay.
But maybe we could just look at some of the candidates that are actually running and the parties that they're representing.
Who do we want to start with here? We have a lot of great candidates up this year. Matt McFarland for the Green Party. For PC, we have Carmen Reeves. NDP, we have Karen Morton. And for Liberal, we have Gordon Sobey.
Yeah, and I mean, probably go in that order. It's probably the easiest thing to do here.
Yes.
One quote that I actually found, if you search up like information on each of the candidates, and Matt McFarland actually has his own page on the PEI Greens, just breaking down who he is and what he stands for per se. And here's a quote that kind of I feel like sums up a lot of his campaign. As a longtime resident of District 19, I have always fought for the best of my community. As co-chair of the South Shore Health and Wellness Center, which I think he has had a big impact on that area. You were mentioning this earlier when we were talking before about how Crapo had lost their family doctor, and he opened up the walking clinic there, or he really pushed for it.
Pushed for it, and kind of with community support, they were able to push for it and kind of create that walk-in center there.
Yeah, and I fought for improved access to healthcare, which we just kind of foreshadowed or mentioned there, right here in our community, and I know we could accomplish much more with a strong voice in the legislature.
Yeah.
And I think he's also involved in a number of things too, like I mentioned, like the co-chair of the South Shore Health and Wellness Center. And he's also the president of the Atlantic branch of the Kidney Foundation. And he's a lawyer by trade too, I believe, for Ken Murray Law.
Okay.
He's a busy guy by the sounds of things.
Yeah.
He's got a lot on his plate.
I think Carmen Reeves, he's from Shamrock, and Carmen has recently retired after near 30 years, I do believe, at the tax center.
Mm-hmm.
And he's been involved in minor hockey and in the community at some of the festivals and events. And he actually beat out 3 other candidates to get the Progressive Conservative nomination. So he's going door to door on behalf of the Progressive Conservatives.
I can't remember where I read this, but I remember reading, and forgive me if I'm wrong, because I can't remember where I heard it, but that he received the most amount of nominations in District 19 history.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's purely just for the Conservatives or if that's for all of the parties as a whole.
I think it was for the parties as a whole. He received the most amount of nominations.
Is that so?
Yeah.
Okay, that's
Okay.
interesting. Okay. I know it was like with 4 candidates coming forward, because originally there was 2, and then another 2 threw their name in. So it was obviously a contested seat. And what's interesting about this is, Jamie Foxx was on the government side, former cabinet minister in the 2019 government. And so, it's currently like a government seat. So it's for the government to lose that seat. But also, if they do win that election, and the Progressive Conservatives do take that seat, it would be a hold for them that seat, and that would leave them with 22 seats in the legislature. But we can discuss some other scenarios down the road, some possibilities that could happen. But
and I mean, like, even with the NDP, Karen Morton.
That's right.
NDP has not they've not received a lot of
4
seats.
years, almost quarter decade, I believe.
Yeah, and was that one of the first elected seats in the ledge?
The only one that they have, Dr. Herb Dickinson. Yeah,
so
and
she
he was the
become
leader
the
of the party. She would become the second one.
Wow, so that would be amazing too. And I mean, that kind of a lot of historical events could kind of tie out from this election, depending on how things go. I mean, being the second elected NDP candidate into the ledge is big. Also, female. That's another big one too.
Yeah.
And also, if Matt McFarland actually does succeed and wins the district, that would put us in a tie. But again, we'll get to that later.
Yeah, that's a big topic.
We don't want to cut out Gordon Sobey.
No.
That's when we have to go to the rule books on that one.
But we don't want to cut out Gordon Sobey before we get into that.
Gordon is from down, I believe, Searletown Way, and He's a farmer.
Mhm.
I think his children all kind of come through like the. I know a couple of them kind of graduated from King Cora Regional High, and but he's also been a past president of the PI Federation of Agriculture. So he has a deep understanding and deep roots in the farming community, and so he's got an understanding of there. So whether or not he draws support from the agricultural community, if that's strong, that might be his success or his pathway to winning that seat.
And I mean, when you say District 19 agriculture, what comes to my mind? Like, it's such a rural aspect of PEI. That's probably one of the number one industries in that district.
Well, what's interesting with that is that in 1997, I guess, long before you guys were born.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
So
Yeah.
being the elder member here on the panel, but
Yeah.
This riding has a long-standing. It used to be known as Fourth Prince, and historically it's been kind of an agricultural. It's been a farming community. It's got loyalists. It's got Irish settlers, Scottish settlers. So it's got a lot of history dating back to when PEI became a province in 1873. And a unique feature of it is that a former MLA back in the 1870s. Cornelius Howard, who happened to be from Tryon, when the vote came up in the PEI legislature for PEI whether or not to join or reject Confederation, he was only one of 2 MLAs in the legislature to say no.
Oh.
And he went on to become a speaker of the PEI legislature. And if you're ever in the legislature, the portraits that they have up on the wall are former speakers, and Cornelius Howard is one of them. But
I'll have to look for him next time I'm in there, I guess.
It's kind of an interesting, and then it was ironic that 100 years after after PEI joined Confederation in 1973, there was a group of individuals who actually resurrected or come up with a group they called the Brothers and Sisters of Cornelius Howard, and they spent a whole year kind of looking at, has Confederation been beneficial for PEI? Did we get what we achieved? Did we get what we wanted? And things like that. And it was just kind of make us look 100 years down the road. Was it as successful and as wonderful as they kind of predicted, right?
Yeah.
But we've had like that riding. So between like 1873 and 1893, they had dual members, which meant we actually our riding selected 2 members.
Catherine Clow, can you contact the office, please, Catherine?
What
We're
can you
getting
do?
so close.
What can you do?
I mean, the Spotify is going to get the cut version, but the YouTube's getting all of the little.
Oh, is it?
assets,
Oh,
which is
that's
That's
fun.
fine. So you get our outtakes too.
Yeah.
But the dual members was originally we had 15 ridings, 2 members per riding, so we had 30 members. So there would be 2 MLAs go to the legislature.
That's interesting.
And then in between 1893 and 1996, actually, we still had the dual members, but we broke them up into 2 positions. And like Campbell, you would be an assemblyman, and Ethan, you would be a councillor.
Okay.
And if my memory serves me correct, if you were a councillor, if you owned land in various ridings, you could go vote for those council positions. And the assemblymen were for ordinary individuals. So it was like if you own land in, say, First Queens, and if you own land in Second Queens and Fourth Prince and Fifth Prince, you could actually then go vote only for the councillors. You didn't have to live in the riding. Now we have to live in the riding to be able to vote. And so in 1996, and then sometimes you would get a split. You would get a liberal or a conservative that would get elected, which was kind of interesting. And at one time, we kind of ran them along religious lines, Catholics and Protestants.
Yeah.
And so it was like, and then so in 1996, we went through kind of a transformation where we decided we'd change the structure, and we went down to, okay, we're going to dismantle the 16 ridings and the 32 MLAs, and we're going to get down to 27, and we're going to redraw the boundaries, and everything will be 1 member per riding. And so that's come about as of the 1997 election. And so up until that time, there was 2 members, and there was one's a councillor and one's assemblyman. And we've also had 3 premiers come out of that riding. J.C. Pope. J.C. Pope was both 1870 to 1872. And I found out he was premier again another time, but he did it from another riding.
Oh,
Wow.
And
Wow.
what I found interesting, and I was telling Ethan, is that in when my great grandfather came here from Ireland at age 11 and kind of worked in Bedeck, saved up enough money, he actually went to proprietor who happened to be J.C. Pope and signed a 999-year lease for the
Wow.
land. And J.C. Pope was a proprietor and landowner, but he was also a politician and he was into everything, right? We also saw John Bell come out of that riding between 1919 and 1923, right after World War One. And Walter Lee did 2 stints between 1930 and 31, and then 35 and 36. And the first female premier ever elected in Canada was from Fourth Prince, Catherine Colbeck, but
Yeah.
she was running at the time in First Queens, and that was the district that she had chosen. So
Yeah.
There's
Okay.
lots of history.
a lot
Yeah,
of history.
a lot of like very fascinating history too. But 99 years? I'm sorry, I'm drawing back
No.
to something that's going to
No.
come
No,
off
sorry,
the topic.
999.
It's a 999 year lease.
years. Wow. They don't do that anymore.
Yeah, except I know, but you realize back in those days, land was not owned by Islanders. It was
Right.
land
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good
by
point.
individuals. Because after Samuel Holland had surveyed the island,
Yeah, that's
it
a
was
good point.
it was divided into the 67 lots, and the proprietors from. But there was a stipulation they had to settle it, and they had to get people working the land. So then, by doing that, you would sign a lease, and I think it was $1 a year or something like that.
Okay.
But it was they cleared the land, they worked the land, and everything else, and so.
And yeah, like, wow.
Yeah, I'm just going to go back to a comment I threw out there earlier. I was actually wrong about something. It wasn't a quarter decade and it wasn't 4 years. It was a quarter century and 24 years since we've had an NDP.
Yeah, a member in the
Yeah.
legislature.
That is
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember when Herb Dickinson was he was the leader and won that seat up west and contributed his voice to the PI legislature
Yeah.
because we actually had for the first time 3 parties in there, right? We do have 3 parties now,
Yeah.
but at that time it was the Liberals, Progressive Conservatives, and the NDP, right?
Yeah.
So if an NDP is elected in this upcoming election, is that the first time in history that the PEI legislature would have 4 parties?
That's a good question.
Yeah, we would actually have 4-party representation
Wow.
in the
Well,
legislature.
that's incredible. Yeah, that would break history then, wouldn't
Yeah.
it?
Would that be something across Canada or just on the island for history?
I would say just on the island.
I would
yeah.
think so.
I would think just on the island. But something that could come out of this district that has the potential to be history across Canada, like for this, like the specific circumstance of how it occurs, is if Matt McFarlane actually manages to win the district, because that would mean that there's a tie for the opposition, which has happened in the past, but not so much in this sense. Right, and like what happens there, I don't know if we turn a page back in PI's book where we did the coin toss, and what was that?
That was to win the
that go
provincial
down?
election back in Al McIsaac's day.
Yeah,
I'm thinking like what I found in politics, the dynamics change can the ground can shift rather quickly.
Yeah.
You may think when a by-election is called or even an election is called is like it's a foregone conclusion, but then an incident or a situation arises and it changes the groundwork. I'm thinking in particular, like I was thinking, like wouldn't it be like the issues that are being discussed on the doorsteps of Fourth Prince are no different than any other issues, but I think and we've talked about them here on this. We've talked about food security. We've talked about healthcare. We've talked about housing. Those are probably all the issues. But I'm thinking probably in the last week that healthcare has probably risen.
Yeah, up there.
especially like what's
Yeah.
going on at PCH, and in case our viewers aren't aware of that, we should probably shed light on that.
Yeah,
what's actually
yes.
happening.
Yep.
Yeah. We realized that as of yesterday, I think there was an announcement made that the ICU we knew was back pretty well in the fall about kind of moved to a progressive care unit with 8 beds, and I believe it was announced yesterday that that's been reduced to 4 beds as of yesterday. So those 8 beds And I think
Wow.
just in the last week, from Prince County, 2 critically ill patients have been moved to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital,
Goodness.
which, is kind of...
And I mean, the issue is too, like, you're not just taking it away from like Summerside residents, right? Like moving all of like that to Charlottetown causes us to have to drive if we want to go to the ICU, but you're also disregarding the entire western part of the province that already had to come to Summerside to go to ICU, right? Now they have a 3-hour drive, like just to go to the ICU. Like having one ICU unit in PEI doesn't make sense.
Right.
But I mean, like, if you look at it, I mean, we have about 180,000 population on PEI right now, and I can remember the day when we had like 125,000.
Yeah.
So we've increased our population probably about like 65,000. At that time, we had ICUs at Prince County Hospital. We probably had ICUs in some of the other hospitals around. So our population has increased, which means our demand on the healthcare system has increased as well.
Yeah.
But it's just, I think, becoming a prominent issue in the last week. And I think on the voters, they're probably looking at, the government is not going to fall by losing this seat. But what could happen is Islanders could say, okay, or District 19, board in Kincora could say, we want to send a message to the government. We're not happy with healthcare. Prince County Hospital is within a stone's throw of our riding, actually comes right up to the Red Bridge. That's where the riding boundaries end. And we want to make a statement to government, and if we put an opposition person in there who's going to get up every day in the legislature and fight for our health care and the restoration of those services, then we may elect it. The government's not going to fall. They would go from 22 seats to 21.
Oh, man.
But if it does, like if the scenario was it was a Green candidate who won, and now we've got 3 Greens and 3 Liberals in the legislature, who is their official opposition?
Now let's talk about that. I'll look into one article that I found here. Or did you want to say something first?
I was going to talk about just one quick thing on the ICU in Summerside. It won't take very long, and then we can directly jump into that.
Yeah.
As of January 25th, 2024, Summerside Mayor and Council have officially requested an action on the ICU services suspension at PCH. Summerside Mayor Dan Kutcher and Summerside Council have sent letters to the Health Minister, Mark McLean, and Interim Health PEI CEO, officially asking that the action be taken on the suspension of ICU services at the Prince County Hospital. The letters say that the recent decision to suspend all ICU services at the PCH will jeopardize the health and outcomes of the citizens in Summerside, Prince County, and the entire province. The mayor and council say that in letters that the implications of the decision and the failure to prevent it from occurring have resulted in further downgrades at Prince County Hospital, new barriers to the retention and recruitment of frontline healthcare professionals, and increased mortality rates. They say reopening a fully functional ICU at PCH is vital to ensuring the continued health and safety of all residents. And there was one thing in there too. I'm sorry, Campbell. We'll get through it real quick. That it doesn't just affect Summerside; it affects the entire province. I mean, if all of Western PEI has to go to Queen Elizabeth Hospital, you're taking away from ICU services to Queens County as well, right? Like it's going to put a larger strain on Queen Elizabeth Hospital, right?
And just maybe to add to that, Isaac, is that town hall meeting has been called by City Hall. The mayor has caught, but that's on February 1st. That's 4 days before that by-election.
Yeah,
right.
And probably a number of those people that are going to be attending that. Yeah. So it's going to be, it's going to be front and foremost in terms of voters' minds. Is that do I need to register my vote to tell government we're not happy and we want either a reversal or a restoration of services? And I think the concern that people are feeling is that if services are taken away, they don't get, there's a, likelihood they don't get returned.
Yep.
And you get a deterioration of your healthcare system.
That's exactly it. And I think that's the perfect place to transition into our next topic.
Yeah, I guess so. So, this is what I've found regarding research on if the Green wins this seat and what a tie could mean for the Ledge. So, previously, there was a speaker who felt that it was not in his decision to make such an important choice as to choose who would be the leader of the opposition. He ruled that in order to maintain the status quo, The official opposition was to remain with the title. So the previous opposition just stayed. He ruled that he would not make any decision based on this. So here's what happened. Basically, on February 27th in 1996, he said nothing in the rules or legislation gave the speaker precise powers and guidelines regarding the designation of the leader of the opposition. So that's why he felt that it wasn't in his responsibility to designate that position to someone else. So this is not to
This
say
is interesting. Yeah.
now he was given the power to do this, but it wasn't out of a rule book. So they felt that it wasn't right to do. And now that's not to say that this couldn't happen in the PEI legislature. The speaker was still given that power to manipulate the situation if they choose to.
What province, Campbell, was that? Was that a particular province?
I'll take a look here. Isaac, if you want to get started on your point,
Yeah,
'cause
I
know
mean,
you have
I'm
one
going to add
too.
to that. That was 1996.
Yeah.
2014, the Speaker of the Alberta's legislature ruled on whether the Wild Rose Party would continue as the official oppositions or if the Liberals would replace them. Because what actually happened is the Wild Rose Party had lost several other members. I believe they lost 5 members in their caucus. And those 5 seats were essentially the difference between the Liberals and the Wild Rose Party at holding that opposition title. So when those 5 members, they actually left and joined the Conservative Party, which the Wild Rose Party, if you actually go and do the research on it, is a very conservative-minded party to begin with. It just it aims to be more independent, per se. But they went and actually joined the Conservative Party, which led there to be an equal number of seats for the opposition. And similarly to what you just said in 1996, the speaker kind of acted in the same way, saying, well, it's not necessarily in my power to determine who the opposition is when we've already had the Wild Rose Party. And one of those members that left the caucus was actually the leader of the opposition. So they actually lost their leader, which if you would think would make would make you question the stability of the party, right? Like if their leader is leaving, how stable is this party? How effective can they actually hold the opposition title? But no, the speaker's just like they were already the opposition, and then the interim leader became the leader of the opposition.
But to follow up on Campbell's point, if a speaker ruled, there's precedent, right? And I think when one legislature makes a ruling, I think other legislatures look at it. They would probably look at the House of Commons, maybe into any other times this might have happened under our British parliamentary system, right? Did it happen in another jurisdiction? But what's interesting is that if the Speaker of the PEI legislature, this was to happen, the Speaker of the legislature was to follow that ruling and saying the Liberals had 3 seats at the end of the last election, the Greens had 2, and now the Greens have picked up an extra seat, so they're now tied 3-3. I've recognized Hal Perry as the leader of the official, as the opposition leader of the opposition. But I'd also like to point out that Hal Perry is in a interim party leader, and Carla Bernard is in the interim. So they're not permanent leaders; they're interim leaders.
Right.
So what would happen?
So that would be another layer of or another layer to
Yeah,
it.
so how would that work for the leadership?
Yeah, because both parties then are in the process of actually selecting a leader,
So would there be
an official leader.
another vote between the parties?
There can be one of the resolutions that was stated was there can either be a coalition where 2 parties form together, but I don't know if that can happen in the legislature, can it?
I don't know.
I don't
think
know
so.
if it could, and I don't think it would happen between
I've
the Green
seen
and the
her
Liberals.
tell of coalition governments, but in terms of coalition, now, basically, if you're sitting on the opposite side of government, you're opposed to government.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And then there can be a re-election, or it can be up to the speaker's vote or the speaker's choice.
It'd probably end up going to the speakers.
We can't say until the day of.
Yeah, exactly.
But
And
that's the way I think.
And the
it would
difference
be.
in the designation of being official opposition and third party status gets to do with questions,
right.
and the amount of questions that you're allowed to ask and the amount of time. So as official opposition, you get a little more time on your feet. You get more involvement in committees. and the likes.
And you mentioned that they would actually look if anything similar has happened in the House of Commons. I think what you were actually speaking to may have been in the House of Commons, because I just read here, in February 1996, the Canadian House of Commons faced a unique situation regarding the designation of its official opposition.
That's the one.
The Reform Party and the Bloc Québécois each had 52 seats in the House.
Yeah.
So that actually did happen in the House of Commons, and that one was when the Speaker
And who
was
was
like...
recognized for that? The Reform?
I think whoever the Reform Party argued that they should be recognized as the official opposition due to factors such as their broader representation across provinces and a higher percentage of popular vote again, compared to the Bloc Québécois. That's a good point too. Higher percentage of popular vote.
So we could decide on that. We could look at popular vote and just see which party. But also too on that, Isaac, is the Bloc Québécois was predominantly a separatist party. And they only ran candidates in Quebec. So that's why the Reforms are arguing we represent more of the country, and we've also achieved more of the votes.
But interestingly enough, the decision that Campbell spoke on was for the Bloc was in favor of the Bloc Québécois because they stayed as the official opposition.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, this is my opinion. Again, we've gone through rule books, we've gone through anything. This rule doesn't necessarily exist, as we've mentioned countless times. Like, it's kind of up for interpretation.
Would be president.
And I'm thinking we just go back to the coin toss, like Al McIsaac. That's the best way to do it. I think Matt McFarland should call heads on this one.
And and we'll just see what side comes up.
Yeah. But other than that, I mean, like, we're kind of pushing our time constraint here. We don't like to go over a 30-minute time period because that's keeps it in captivating without being kind of too much.
Yeah. So let us know what you guys are looking for in this upcoming election here on the 5th. Like, what do you think is going to happen? And especially with the thoughts about this tie, as Trainer and Isaac and I and Ethan. All of us here today we're talking about. It's just going to be a huge deal.
And maybe anybody who's listening and that's eligible to vote in the District 19, advanced polling begins tomorrow. There's 3 opportunities, but get out and vote and make your voice heard.
I know. I just turned 18 this year, or last year, I guess, end of last year. I'm so disappointed it's not my district. I was like,
same here.
I was contemplating running in the district. I was like, what if I showed up to a nomination party and just see what happened? But
you could run as an independent. You don't have to live in the riding.
I know. I should have.
Yeah.
I should have.
Yep.
Okay. As always, just want to say here,
I'd like to give a special shout out to Holland College again for sponsoring this episode. So make sure you visit hollandcollege.com/events to sign up and mention the podcast to enter a chance to win a swag bag. That's hollandcollege.com/events.
I mean, I would love a swag bag from Holland College. Like, who wouldn't, right?
I'm kind of sad we can't get. So that's too bad.
Maybe we're gonna have to get our own swag, our own hoodies, right?
Oh.
Yeah, train station.
Is that foreshadowing? I hear?
Yeah, that's to be determined in a future episode.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all for now. Take care.
All right.
Okay, have a great week, folks.
See you next week.
That was a fun one.
Yeah.